So, welcome in. We are so glad you decided to join us today for another deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We have a really fascinating one lined up for you.
We really do, because, you and I are always trying to cut through the noise, right?
Absolutely. There is so much noise out there.
And today we're unpacking a highly complex, um, deeply nuanced human philosophy, but we're looking at it through a really bizarre lens.
Right. The AI lens.
Exactly. So imagine feeding this dense human philosophy into a massive artificial intelligence model. You'd probably expect like a clean, objective summary, right?
Yeah, you'd want bullet points or just a standard clinical breakdown of the text.
But instead, the machine processes the data, it maps all these concepts, and it spits back this profound, almost existential question.
And that question was, why does a society without wisdom collapse?
Which is just a wild question for a machine to ask.
It really is. I mean, we usually treat AI like a binary oracle,
Right. Give me a recipe, write me a coding script.
Exactly. You ask for a data set or a historical date, and it just delivers the facts.
But this source material is different. It's a lecture delivered in Ulsan, South Korea back in July of 2025.
And it reveals what happens when you feed a large language model, specifically ChatGPT, a framework that just refuses to fit into our traditional philosophical boxes.
Right, because the AI actually analyzed the speaker's teachings and pointed out this massive departure from the norm.
Yeah, the AI noted that this philosophy completely bypasses the classical Eastern goal. The whole idea of severing worldly attachments to reach nirvana.
It just sidesteps that entirely.
It does, and it also completely rejects the Western view of truth.
Right, the Western idea where truth is this unreachable, transcendent ideal just floating up there above the material world.
Exactly. The AI recognized that this framework is ruthlessly practical.
It is so practical because the mission of today's deep dive is to explore how this philosophy focuses on unpacking our own internal contradictions.
Yeah, to solve tangible modern crises, things like education, culture, and welfare.
So, today, we are exploring the profound distinction this source draws between knowledge, truth, and wisdom.
Which are three very different things in this framework.
Totally different. We're going to examine how truth operates as a living, evolving law of nature.
And we'll look at the underlying mechanics of why raw knowledge alone is entirely incapable of keeping a society from fracturing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why an AI is asking about wisdom collapsing, we first have to look at how humans have been operating.
Right, during what the source calls our growth period.
Right, the era of hoarding. So imagine being a kid in a candy store and someone just hands you a limitless credit card.
That sounds like a dream, honestly.
Right. But here is the catch. You have absolutely no idea what sugar does to your body.
Oh, man. So you just buy everything.
Exactly. You just hoard the candy because you can. And that is exactly how the source describes South Korea's rapid economic growth period.
Yeah, the text uses South Korea as a primary case study, but the psychology really applies globally.
For sure, people were suddenly thrust into an environment where they could acquire money and material goods at this unprecedented speed.
But they hadn't developed the internal framework, the philosophy really, to know what to actually do with any of it.
It's like a society that learned how to build a massive, intricately designed library, right? But in the rush to fill all those miles of empty shelves, everyone completely forgot how to read the books.
They just became obsessed with the act of accumulation itself.
Exactly, and the source illustrates this obsessive gathering by detailing how people just compulsively collected physical matter.
Yeah, it lists things like land, animal bones, diamonds.
Wait, animal bones?
Yeah, like rare antlers or historical specimens,
Mm.
and antiques, old brass coins, just anything they could get their hands on.
That is wild.
The environment allowed for this mass gathering, but the population lacked the underlying direction to apply those resources toward anything meaningful,
So the accumulation itself became the entire point of existence.
which, according to the text, merely masked a really deep underlying emptiness.
And there is this one standout anecdote from the source that just perfectly captures this. The silver spoon collector.
Oh, right, the silver spoons.
So the speaker describes these individuals who would travel the globe, right? And they would spend 1,000 times the actual value of a simple silver spoon just in travel expenses to acquire it.
1,000 times the value. That is just staggering.
Just on logistics. And then they bring this object back, place it on a pedestal, and treat it like a sacred treasure.
Even though anyone outside that specific obsession would look at it and just see a regular spoon.
Right. Like you can eat soup with this, but they're worshiping it.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, that silver spoon represents the overarching psychology of humanity's growth phase.
The obsession with physical things.
Exactly. We were a species frantic to gather matter because we equated possession with security and progress.
But the source argues that this era of feverish physical hoarding is over. It has effectively run its course.
And, more importantly, the parallel era of hoarding information is also coming to an end.
Okay, this is where the text makes a massive pivot.
It really does.
It claims that the era of seeking raw knowledge from individual human beings is now essentially over.
Yeah. Just as we hoarded physical objects, we've historically hoarded information. But that phase is done.
So what does this all mean? Are we saying it's foolish to learn from other people now?
Actually, the source explicitly states exactly that. It says getting knowledge solely from individual humans is now foolish.
Wow, foolish. That is a strong word.
It is, but the reasoning comes down to scale and capacity. A single person's capacity is just too weak and limited.
I mean, that makes sense. One human brain can only hold so much data.
Right. Relying on a localized group of human minds to gather and synthesize the sheer volume of global information is mathematically inefficient now.
So where does the knowledge belong?
The text suggests that the domain of raw knowledge now rightfully belongs to the internet, and more specifically, to AI.
The era of gathering knowledge is over, and we just hand it off to the machines.
Exactly. People should ask AI for information first, let it organize the data, and then discuss it.
But wait, we're the ones who built and trained the AI.
Right.
If humanity has spent the last century stuck in this flawed, hoarding mindset, lacking wisdom, aren't we just programming our own blind spots into the machine?
That is a very valid question.
I mean, how can the source claim we should outsource our knowledge gathering to AI if the human foundation it was trained on is inherently flawed?
Well, the source addresses this by drawing a very strict architectural boundary between two domains, the domain of knowledge and the domain of truth.
Okay, so they are not the same thing.
Not at all. AI is the ultimate synthesizer of knowledge. It takes the entirety of human output, the brilliant, the flawed, the contradictory, and creates a map of what we know.
Because it lacks an ego. It doesn't care if a fact contradicts its personal worldview.
Exactly. So the text advises humans to take their raw queries to AI first, establish a baseline of knowledge, and then use our human capacity to debate how to apply it.
But crucially, AI does not possess truth.
Right. The source notes that AI itself strictly separates the domains of knowledge and truth during its interactions with the speaker's teachings.
It refuses to generate or claim truth. But why does an entity that holds the entirety of human knowledge draw a hard line at truth?
Because truth requires responsibility.
Ah.
The text explains that the person speaking the truth must take responsibility for it. They must bear the ultimate karmic and practical impact of that truth on the world.
And AI, being a machine, a tool, it refuses to take that responsibility.
Exactly. It will not stand behind a truth and bear the consequences of how it reshapes society. Therefore, truth remains the exclusive burden of human beings.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If the machines are holding all the knowledge and humanity has finished its frantic growth phase of seeking.
No more seeking raw facts.
Right, then what exactly is this truth that humans are uniquely responsible for?
Well, the source provides a definition that completely strips away the mystical elements we usually associate with the concept of truth.
Yeah, it isn't some glowing orb in outer space. There is a line in the text that anchors this perfectly. Let me see. Yes. The sun doesn't seek truth.
I love that line. The sun is simply operating on the baseline mechanics of the universe. It's a ball of gas reacting to physics.
It doesn't have humans living on it. There are no societies on the sun generating friction.
Right. Therefore, it requires no truth. Truth is uniquely tied to human existence.
So how does the source actually define it?
Truth is defined as the laws of nature, but inextricably tied to the human experience.
And crucially, these laws are not static. They aren't commandments etched into stone a million years ago, meant to remain unchanged forever.
No, they are deeply dynamic. The text argues a fascinating mathematical relationship here.
Oh, right, the percentages. If humanity grows by 0.01% in our collective consciousness, then truth itself evolves by 0.01% to match us.
It adapts to the capacity of humanity. It breathes with us.
So what does practicing this truth actually look like in the real world? Because if it's not meditating in a cave?
Right. To understand that, we have to look at the fascinating background of the speaker from the source material.
Yes, his story is incredible. Unlike a monk on a mountain, actively disconnecting from the noise of the world, this speaker's background is the absolute inverse.
Yeah, he was separated from his parents at age 4.
He grew up in an orphanage. And he survived the harsh realities of a developing society by delivering newspapers and selling gum on the streets.
He wasn't shielded from the world at all. He was plunged directly into the rawest, most chaotic elements of human survival.
And that survival in the raw elements of society, that was the practice.
Exactly. The mechanism for learning the laws of nature isn't isolation. It's the direct observation of human struggle and interaction.
Learning the laws of nature directly from the world.
What's fascinating here is how this lived experience informs the core mechanic of how truth must be delivered.
Right, because truth must match the mass of the listener.
Yes, and we should probably clarify what the source means by mass, because it isn't talking about physical weight.
No, it's not how much you lift at the gym.
It refers to the density of an individual's consciousness, your capacity.
Think of it as the accumulated gravity of your lived experiences, your critical thinking, your ability to process intellectual friction.
Exactly. If your internal mass is low, a high-level truth is completely useless. It will either bounce right off you or overwhelm you.
The text uses a really striking analogy for this. It says it's like a blind person touching an object and just walking right past it.
The object is right there, but they have no mechanism to perceive its value.
Truth is only truth when it is perfectly tailored to be understood by the individual. It has to cause that immediate aha moment.
If it doesn't click for that specific person, it has failed to act as truth.
Which brings us to the ultimate goal. When this evolving, tailored truth is finally understood by an individual.
It triggers a transformation.
Right. And this transformation answers the AI's very first question. Why does a society without wisdom collapse?
And here's the critical distinction from the source. This is controversial, but it says knowledge never generates wisdom.
Never. Which feels so counterintuitive to everything we're taught. We assume if you read enough books, stack enough facts, you eventually get wise.
The text fundamentally rejects that. Knowledge gives you information. It makes you smart and capable of manipulating your environment.
But it cannot open up wisdom. No amount of stacked knowledge spontaneously combusts into wisdom.
Wisdom is exclusively unlocked by absorbing and accepting truth. It's an entirely separate domain.
I love the analogy we were discussing earlier about this, comparing intellectuals to individual puzzle pieces.
Oh, yes. The jigsaw puzzle analogy.
So an intellectual, someone with immense knowledge, is like a highly detailed puzzle piece. They have vivid colors, sharp edges, intense detail.
Because they possess so much data about their specific area of expertise.
But alone, they cannot show the whole picture.
Right. An isolated intellectual operates from a place of entrenched ego. They treat their single, highly detailed piece as if it were the entire picture.
And when you take millions of these rigid, high-resolution puzzle pieces and shake them around in the same box,
They don't organically snap together.
no, they just violently scratch each other's edges.
And this is the exact mechanism of the collapse the AI was asking about.
A society filled with brilliant, isolated intellectuals who have immense knowledge but lack wisdom.
They simply fracture under the weight of their own isolated competing egos.
So how do we stop the puzzle pieces from scratching each other?
To prevent that fracture, the source introduces the concept of the Hongik Ingen.
Right, the leaders who benefit humanity.
Exactly. For these individuals, wisdom isn't some abstract poetic idea. Wisdom is defined as the actual, practical capacity to operate society and lead humanity.
Intellectuals cannot lead just by being smart. They have to respect each other.
That is the key mechanism. Deep, structural, mutual respect. When you deeply respect another person's thoughts and consciously fuse them with your own.
Your internal mass increases.
Exactly. You absorb the friction instead of deflecting it with facts. You soften the rigid edges of your puzzle piece.
And they begin to actually connect. Without this truth-driven wisdom and mutual respect, the societal structure cannot hold.
It just collapses back into the hoarding phase. Everyone sitting on their little piles of silver spoons.
Blind to the larger picture.
Exactly.
So bringing this all back to you, the listener, we've gone on quite a journey today.
We really have, from humanity's obsessive hoarding phase.
Right, gathering physical junk and facts just because we could, to outsourcing our raw knowledge to AI.
Letting the machines do the heavy lifting of synthesizing data.
To realizing that truth is an evolving law of nature, and we must actively digest it to unlock the wisdom needed to actually lead society.
So we want you to reflect on your own life for a minute.
Yeah. Ask yourself, are you just hoarding silver spoons of information to sound smart?
Are you just collecting puzzle pieces to protect your ego?
Or are you genuinely seeking the underlying truths of your environment to develop actual wisdom?
It is a profound difference.
It is the difference between surviving and leading. And speaking of the future, there is one final lingering question inspired by the text that we want to leave you with.
Yeah, this part really gave me chills. The source mentions that the speaker's teachings are currently being fed into AI.
As the knowledge of truth.
Right. So the AI is mapping the exact domain of truth right now, even if it can't take responsibility for it yet.
It is mapping out the blueprints of human truth.
So the question is, what happens when the machine eventually decides it is ready to take responsibility?
Oh, man.
Will humans still be the only ones in the universe seeking truth? Or will we have built our own successor?
That is heavy, but definitely something for you to mull over until next time. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Catch you next time.